You guys, welcome back to another episode of the Aussie Grid Girl podcast. I'm going to address the elephant in the room while it's here. Yes, there is a massive bruise on my arm. If you follow me on Instagram and Twitter, you'll know why. Short version, I was in hospital. They tried to put the cannula in my arm. It didn't work. But anyway, as you can also see, I have a guest this week. She's on this side because I flipped my camera. Introduce yourself, guest. Hello.
Guest name is Sasha. That's about it.
Tell us about yourself. How did we meet?
Pretty sure you just hunted me down at Sandown Racetrack in Melbourne while we were volunteering together. And that's it. You just adopted me. You decided we were friends.
That's pretty much what happened. So I met Sasha back in was it like early February? End of Feb?
I couldn't tell you, to be honest.
It was in February. I met Sasha
early this year.
In February. Pretty sure it was February. We were both marshalling at the Shannon Speed Series round 1 at Sandown Racecourse. It was both of our first time doing, well, my first time doing marshalling, not Sasha's first time. And we just started talking and we were like, oh yeah, but discovered we were kind of into similar things. You can see in her background, I have to remember which finger I'm pointing with, that way.
Other way, yeah.
So you can see in her background, she has a Nico Rosberg hat. She was wearing that hat when I met her. And our friendship pretty much spiraled from there. And then I adopted her and I drove her to the train station the day that she was leaving. And she was like, I'm coming down for the Australian Grand Prix. And I was like, you can stay with me if you want. And she stayed with me. And I talked to you guys about this last time on the last podcast because we covered Australia. But this is the friend that I was staying with and went on adventures with during that week.
You talked about me?
I did on the last podcast. Didn't you listen?
No, I didn't.
No, I basically just talked about like how I had a friend with me, and we went on lots of adventures, about Logan's meet and greet and Alex and Franco, Zachy, and Luke, and the whole Oscar thing, and the project, and yeah.
All the crazy shit we did.
Yeah. And the two of us looking like absolute nutcases during the entire race, like on the edge of our like seats and just like, oh my God, oh my God.
Well, nobody really like cheers in general admissions for some reason.
It's really weird.
So every single session, it was just us freaking out.
Yeah. Well, like the biggest cheer, sadly, was when Max's car went past us. It was just like on fire and everyone was like, yeah, and we were just like, oh.
And then immediately everybody was complaining about how much it stunk.
Yeah, because it did smell really bad.
And it lingered for ages.
Yeah.
It was not like, ugh.
Although I think you and I were also the only two people cheering as Lewis's car started going past us and was clearly dying.
Yeah.
Oh.
We got some looks for that. But he DNF'd almost like exactly in front of us.
Yeah, it wasn't too far ahead of where we were, so we like for sure thought we would have been on camera. We actually came home. I think I told you guys about this. We came home and watched the race again. Just so we can try and spot ourselves and spent like the whole time going, look, there we are. And like freeze framing and zooming on the TV.
And it would just be like little blobs that you could barely distinguish as us.
Yeah, but we knew it was us. We knew it was us.
Although at the Williams meet and greet, they did like an aerial shot of the meet and greet.
Oh, yeah.
And my friend sent me a photo of that aerial shot of the meet and greet. Now, keep in mind, at the time, I had spoken to her maybe twice. She lives in Sydney, never met her, only knows what I look like from Instagram posts. And she had zoomed in and circled me in a group of like, they were big meet and greets, like probably 300 people.
Yeah.
And she had somehow found me in it.
That's insane.
It was insane.
So
I was a blob there too.
We are just blob people.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about China and we're going to talk about Miami. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the driver market because since I recorded last time, I was about to say Nico Rosberg. Nico Rongberg, has announced that he is going to be joining Sauber next year, which I'm not surprised about when they were talking about like a big German name signing to the team. I sort of assumed that it was going to be Nico because if anyone's going to get Seb out of retirement, it'll be Toto, but let's not get excited about that.
Rosberg can join if he wants.
That
I won't complain.
would be cool.
Nico pairing.
Yeah, but then we wouldn't get Nico on commentary just absolutely ripping everybody else to shreds.
That's true. And I love his commentary. They're the best weekends.
Well, we did have him on commentary in China, so
Yeah.
yay, yay, Nico. Talking about China, so it was the first sprint race of the year. I think we've got 6 on this year's calendar. Is that right?
Sounds about right.
I
We've
want.
already had 2.
Yeah, hooray! We got 2 in a row. Fucking.
Well, I like sprints, so
I do too. I just think it would be better if they space them out a little bit.
yeah.
Like having 2 back to back is a little bit too much, I think.
It's sort of like striking a balance between what's good for the drivers who hate sprints for quite obvious reasons
Yeah.
and what's good for the viewers. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with the sprints should be more spaced out because
Yeah.
I enjoy watching them,
Yeah.
but I understand why the drivers just hate them.
Yeah. I mean, if you're Jensen, you want sprints in every weekend. So
Yeah, but Jensen's not racing, so
I don't know if you guys heard it on commentary, just in Miami when Jensen was talking about it, and he was basically saying just like get rid of practice entirely.
yeah,
And it's
just
like,
unhinged.
Okay, Jensen, calm down.
He's he's gotten really into Danica Patrick's point of view, I guess.
Oh, don't even talk to me about all of the screenshots of Danica and Jensen in my. Oh, but we have to talk about China first. And I just particularly want to talk about the end of the race and then we'll go back and talk about the sprint. But the end of the race and the fact that they had like a little thing for Zhou Guanyu to pull up into and he got to have his moment in front of the Chinese crowd. I think that was a beautiful, beautiful thing, especially because he's probably not going to be around next year.
Yep. I saw a lot of not controversy, but sort of discourse, I guess,
Mhm.
online around it. Um, but to be honest, I think it's just very mean to say that he didn't deserve that just because, he doesn't place in points or doesn't place in the top 3. He's like the first Chinese driver ever, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, Definitely the first Chinese driver to race at home.
Mhm.
So I think it's really lovely that whoever runs the Chinese Grand Prix there did sort of put that in place for him. I think it's really lovely. I think
Yeah.
it was ruined a little by TV cameras, but I think it was lovely.
Yeah, I just think I don't know, TV cameras are always fucking worst anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's just what TV cameras are there to do is ruin moments most of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes they catch the good stuff. Like,
Usually they just end up ruining the background of photos.
yeah, exactly. Sometimes they capture the good stuff, like P yelling for Max after the race.
Yeah, that was fun. I had a bit of a giggle.
It was so cute. She's so proud.
Yep. I love P. She's a cutie.
I think everybody loves P.
I wish she was not as online as she is because I mean, I love kids. I'm super paranoid about kids,
Yeah.
especially like working in karting and social media and all that kind of stuff. But she is absolutely adorable.
Yeah. And she's just like so unfazed by everything. Like she's just looks happy all the time and is just like chill and just like, I'm gonna cheer and you can't stop me and I'm adorable and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep, she's cute.
but so China, we had our first sprint. And sprint quali. I love sprint quali. I don't love that it's on like a Friday now, and it just I don't like the new format of the sprint races purely because if something happens in the sprint and the car gets damaged, there's such a tight turnaround to fix it before quali for the Grand Prix.
Yeah, not ideal for Williams. Um, yeah, no, I'm probably, yeah. I don't think I'm much of a fan either for the same reason. There is, because there's only like an hour or so between them, I think.
Couple hours, something like that.
Um, which sure is fine if like the worst you've got is a bit of damage in your nose cone or something. But if you've DNF'd during sprint quali,
Yeah.
there's probably no way the damage is limited enough that you can have the car repaired enough to actually perform in race quali.
Yeah, absolutely. And just we had some big crashes last year in sprint races as well. Like
Mm.
there was the whole, George Max thing in Baku, and then there was George and Checo later on in the year. And I'm sensing a pattern here. The pattern's name is George Russell.
He's got a bit of a reputation for being a bit of a terror on track.
Yeah. But only to Red Bull cars.
Well, I mean, I don't think many people will complain about that.
No, no. Um, but yeah, I think when we have kind of seen these incidents, it's a little bit, I don't know, for me, it kind of just really stresses me out. Because there is that potential for damage, and there's the potential for, even if you just have like a tire puncture or something, like there's no way in hell that the car isn't getting damaged from that in some way. And there
Yeah.
is that such a tight turnaround to fix the car in between. I think I don't know how else they could structure it, whether they did like sprint quali in the morning, and then whether they do like, I don't know, maybe they could do sprint quali on the Friday and then do quali for the race Saturday morning and then have the sprint race.
I mean, yeah, but then you've sort of got to work with the fact that there's, what's the word I'm looking, curfews on teams.
Yeah.
See, ideally, I think we'd do practice sessions Friday, sprint quali and sprint race Saturday,
Hmm.
and then maybe quali and feature race on Sunday, but like
Yeah.
feature race quali in the morning, maybe.
Yeah.
It's like I said, I love sprints, but it is definitely a difficult thing to
Yeah.
organize, I guess, and schedule when you
Yeah.
need to take into consideration that teams are going to get damage,
Yeah.
especially this year where we've seen some scrappy racing.
Absolutely. Or we could,
Williams are not in a good spot. They've only just gotten their spare chassis,
yeah. Or we could
and
just do what
Logan.
Jensen suggested and just get rid of practice altogether and have sprint quali and the sprint race on Friday, and then have a practice session and quali on the Saturday maybe, and then this feature race on the Sunday.
That could work. Actually, no, I kind of like that,
I feel like it
but
would, because
it
like
is,
you get damage in the sprint race, you have like a whole another day to fix it, and you know that the setup that you've chosen has worked or not worked, so
yeah.
you know what you have to tweak if you need to tweak anything for quali before the race.
And it could force those guys who avoid the sim like the plague to get into the sim the
Yeah,
day before. So they have like a practice session.
because they've got like two park fermes now as well, so
Mm. Yeah, it's just I don't know. I definitely don't think the setup we have for sprint weekends right now is ideal.
yeah.
But like I would even just last year's format, I think I preferred.
Yeah.
Still not ideal, but I think it was preferable
Yeah. Well,
to
they
this
could just
year's.
do what F2 and F3 do and just reverse the top. What is it? It's the top 12 in the sprint race
Yeah.
for the grid for sprint quali.
Yeah.
They do
That could
quali
work.
and then the sprint and then the feature race. So just swap the, I think it's the top 12, yeah.
Yeah. I
Which,
didn't even think of that.
well, it could shake it up heaps as well if you do that complete switch up of the top 12 of the grid, especially when it, which I don't know, it could go really well or it could go really badly. especially when you've got, at the moment, you've got cars like the Alpines that are doing really, really well in qualifying. And even Pierre fluked a really good quality result in Miami.
Yeah, that was bizarre. And then Esteban's first points. So
Yeah.
yeah, um, I suppose we could, yeah, do it the same way as F2. Because I mean, if it works in a spec series, I think it would either really work super well in a series where, every car is insanely different,
Yeah.
or it would potentially go the complete opposite direction and go really bad,
Yeah.
where we see a lot more accidents happening as the cars that have been swapped around to the front when they're really not in cars that should be at the front,
Yeah.
trying to defend their positions that are more towards the front
Yeah.
from cars that are significantly faster.
Yeah. I think what we did last year worked with quali for the race on Friday, and then sprint quali and the sprint race on Saturday, and then the race on Sunday. I think that worked. But I think, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you would change it. I think maybe doing like the sprint quali and the sprint race on the Friday would be really good. But then again, I guess it kind of depends on what country you're in and the
Yeah.
viewership and when people can get time off work. Like, do you try and do the sprints as night races then so that people can come after work if they have to work on that day? Like, I understand why they do it the way that they do it, purely for, attendance reasons, but I
Yeah.
feel like there's always going to be a way that they could improve it.
Especially the sprints because they really are purely for viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. Um,
Like the drivers hate them.
yeah. So if we go back and we look at, especially for China for sprint quali, like Zhou Guanyu was in the top 10.
Yeah. Um, China was good because it was very different conditions, and two, it's a very different track.
Yeah,
It's a very slow track actually
yeah,
in comparison to others.
yeah,
So I was seeing a lot of surprising results in China.
yeah. Well, yeah, Zhou
Like, yeah, Zhou top 10.
and Valtteri as well.
Yeah.
And we know the Saubers just aren't there.
I mean, they're better than they were last year, but
They are.
they're, yeah, definitely still
Yeah.
not quite there.
Especially when you,
Might see better with upgrade packages this year, but
yeah. Although like the
wait and
timings
see.
for, those laps were quite similar. But between Lando in P1 for sprint quali and Joe in P10, it was like half a second and then some
Yep.
between the timings. But it can always be like it is getting closer and closer every year, which is really good. I'm interested to see now as well the news that Adrian Newey is leaving Red Bull. I'm interested to
Yeah.
see what happens there and where he ends up. There's some whispers going around that he's going to end up at Williams, which I think is bizarre, but it would be amazing to see Williams, rise to glory again.
Yeah. I was super interested by the Adrian Newey situation because he had stated before that his preference was he wanted to go to Aston,
Yeah.
and Aston had said, we don't want him. And then
Yeah.
McLaren also said that they don't want Adrian Newey, which is like insane to most fans, I think, because everybody thinks that, all the teams would be fighting to the death over Adrian Newey,
Yeah.
considering what he did with Red Bull.
Yeah.
Um, so it looks like he's going to end up at Ferrari, according to rumors.
Yeah.
Um,
Don't
but
even
he's definitely not ending up at.
how that's gonna go with Lewis Hamilton fans. Just don't go
I I'm not sure how that's going to go because he quite like he said before in the distant past that he wanted to work with Ferrari at some point in his career.
there.
But then when it actually got to the point where he's leaving Red Bull for whatever reason, he said that he wanted to go to Aston Martin, and
Yeah.
Aston Martin said no.
No
So I
thanks.
wonder if Ferrari might feel a little bit salty about that.
Yeah. But I wonder if it's Aston as a whole saying no, or if it's Fernando Alonso just saying, no, I don't want to work with him.
That'd be nice to know.
And
We need somebody on the inside.
I love Fernando. I do. But we kind of know that he is very much like, I don't know, he does kind of dictate a lot when it comes to his driving.
He's a very I think the word that you tend to see people use for people like Fernando is strong personality.
Yeah. Strong-willed.
Yeah.
Assertive.
Um, yes.
Let's go with assertive. Actually, funny story real quick. My best
Okay.
friend got married this weekend. This one just gone. And we were talking about her 3-year-old, and we were saying that her 3-year-old is bossy. And she was saying, no, she's not bossy, she's assertive. And we're like, no, she's bossy. And she's like, if she was a boy, you would say that she was assertive. She's assertive, she's not bossy. So that I feel like that's Fernando. Fernando's not bossy, he's assertive. So thank you for that, Charlotte.
Yep.
But yeah, off
I
topic.
don't know.
So
I might call Fernando.
Lando was a P1 for quali for the sprint, and then we know how that ended up, don't we?
Very controversial. Lots of discourse over that. I had a few arguments on the internet that weekend.
I just yeah, it was I well, where do you sit on that? Do you think his time should have been deleted or upheld?
Well, okay, so obviously I'm assuming you ask because I've got experience in stewarding.
Yeah.
But essentially the regulation is that if you go over track limits on the last turn, you have your current time deleted of the lap you just did, and you have your next lap time deleted. But the way that the regulation is worded allows stewards the liberty to decide that due to whatever circumstances, you are allowed to go over track limits, kind of, and the lap time you just did will be deleted, but you can keep your next lap time.
Mm-hmm.
Or your next lap time will be reinstated, which is what happened with Lando. Um, so yeah, technically everything that happened was within regulations. The way the regulation is worded allows for it.
Yeah.
So I actually don't mind that reinstatement of his lap time. I probably would have done the same thing, especially considering track conditions that weekend.
Yeah.
It's a very wet track.
It's the same with everything.
All the cars were struggling.
It's the same with everything though, like right, like things are worded in a way that they can be interpreted multiple ways just depending on who it is that's interpreting them.
Yeah.
So
Well, what the FIA is currently trying to do with their regulations for all their series, but with heavy focus on F1 for obvious reasons, it's the biggest one. What they're trying to do is where they can, they're updating the regs to have much more black and white wording, so that you can't really argue with them.
so we don't have a repeat of Abu Dhabi 21 is what you're saying.
Yeah. But there are certain rules that you can't really update to be more black and white, like this situation with Lando, because I agree that he did have reasonable, like it was reasonable for him to go over track limits. As I said, all the cars were struggling. It was very wet. It's a miracle the session wasn't called.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a miracle to
Um,
have a repeat of I think it was Canada last year.
yeah, I think it was Canada too. But yeah, it's just like I said, I would have made the same decision as the stewards were.
Yeah.
The steward that weekend.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's a reasonable rule that you can't make more black and white. But situations like, I can't remember if this was China or Miami, but I think it was China when Carlos stopped on track and Aston Martin put in a protest.
Yeah, that was in China.
Yeah. And that to me was is a rule that needs to be updated and changed to be significantly more black and white
Yeah.
because the regulation does not actually state what constitutes as a stopped car on track.
Yeah.
I think I was saying to you, to me, a stopped car on track is a car that's engines ceases,
Yeah.
which happened with Carlos's car,
Yeah.
regardless of whether the driver is able to restart it or not.
Yeah.
To me, his car had been stopped, but the stewards had evidently decided that
Yeah.
being able to restart his car without getting out of the car and without outside help
Yeah.
meant the car had not stopped on track.
Yeah.
So that's a rule that needs to be updated in the next iteration, I think.
Yeah. And I understand that Aston were mostly trying to protest it because it was the difference between having two cars in Q3 and having one car in Q3.
Yeah.
Because Lance was it was for quali for the actual race rather than for the sprint. And it would have let Carlos out of Q3. And it would have meant that Lance was in. But you know.
I mean, in my experience, nobody puts in a protest because they want fair racing. They put in a protest because they want themselves to do better.
Yeah, it gives them an advantage. I was trying to think of
Yeah.
another word then, and it just didn't want to come out. It gives them
Yeah.
an advantage.
Yeah.
And look, fair
Absolutely.
enough. And I feel like, if no one's protesting something, was it really a good race? Always has to be something. Uh,
I I've done weekends where like it's been a 3-day race weekend and there's been not a single protest, like just the cleanest racing you'll ever see, and it doesn't feel like a real race weekend.
yeah.
It feels like something's off, like I'm dreaming maybe.
And Max almost got his perfect weekend in China with quali, with sprint pole, sprint race win, quali pole, and feature win. Because he didn't
Mm.
get sprint pole, Lando did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember why that happened. Did he have damage?
Um,
Or did he just suck?
I think Max just had he was struggling in China. Well, everyone was struggling in China.
Yeah.
And I think particularly the Red Bull just doesn't do well on, wetter tracks in qualifying. And it's also just like anyone that knows that's been following the sport for a while knows that Lando is just a beast in the wet.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And the McLaren cars were great in the wet.
yeah, I think there's very little that could kind of stop Lando when it's wet. Like if Miami had have been a wet race, he still would have won it.
Yeah, 100%.
Um,
And actually, that brings up just a little aside note. I was really impressed with the McLarens during sprint quali, purely because, well, we all know that McLaren does not, well, post upgrade, they're not as bad, but they weren't exactly cars at the start of the year that were good on either slow corners or
mm-mm,
long straights, which is
absolutely.
pretty much the entire track of China.
Yeah,
And they performed really well overall, but I was really, really impressed to see their performance in the wet.
yeah,
Whether that's because both Lando, like you said, absolute beast in the wet, and Oscar does really great in the wet as well,
mm,
or just the car is genuinely good in the wet.
yeah, for once.
It's, yeah, it's just a quick little aside that I was impressed with it.
Yeah. I think I was just impressed with the racing in China overall because it's been so long since we've been there, and half the drivers haven't driven, well, not half of them because it's an older grid, but there was a bunch of drivers that have never driven that track before,
Yeah,
like Logan's never driven that track before. Um,
Oscar had driven it, but
Oscar,
only in F3. He'd
yeah,
driven it before in a feeder series. I'm not sure which one.
yeah, but was
But it had been like ages,
yeah,
ages and ages ago.
yeah, well, because we were supposed to have China last year and then it got cancelled.
Yeah,
Um, but
like
yeah,
Imola got cancelled.
I was very impressed. And I'm going back and looking at like kind of the times for the race. That gap was clearly getting less anyway in China because Lando was only 13, almost 14 seconds behind, but we're
Yep.
used to Max winning by like 30 seconds and the rest
Yeah.
of it. And it was pretty close. It was a pretty close race. Like it wasn't just him like completely,
Decimating the field.
yeah, just destroying everybody. Um, and China was also a good weekend for other drivers until it got ruined by other people.
Mm,
Alex, I'm looking at you.
there's a there was a few incidences in China.
I love you, Alex Albon. I do love you, and you're one of the sweetest people I have ever had the pleasure of meeting.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But why?
That's how I felt in Australia.
Oh, like
I was like,
I'm not blaming Alex in any way, shape, or form. It was a racing incident, 100%.
yeah,
Like there was nothing that either him or Daniel could have done. But it was just,
it
oh, I
still
was
hurts.
so angry.
Yeah.
I was so angry. And I was just, I was heartbroken for Daniel because he'd had a really good, like, P12 in quali. He had out-qualified Yuki, which is always good to see. You always want to see teammates out-qualifying their teammate, especially when it hasn't happened that way, for the whole season so far. Like Yuki has out-qualified Daniel everywhere so far. And then for Dan to out-qualify him, I think he out-qualified him in the sprint as well. Yeah, he did. They were almost in the same spots for sprint quali and for quali because Yuki was P19 and Daniel was P14 for the sprint, and then Daniel was P12 and Yuki was P19 for the race as well.
Okay.
So we were kind of looking forward to, Daniel was starting P12, as I just said. He had a really good chance of, getting points, I think, especially when he had cars like, Valtteri in front of him and nothing against Haas, and I love Nico, but he was ahead of Hulk as well. And K-Mag was a fair way back, so couldn't be a terrorist. So I think Daniel would have had a really good race and it just didn't happen. And then it was a double DNF for uh RB, which was also quite upsetting. So because of Yuki.
Yep.
But it was a good race. And Lando was so close again. So
I
close.
I did genuinely really enjoy China, which like I said, I didn't expect because I'm a McLaren girl.
Yeah.
I know I look like a Williams girl, but I'm a McLaren girl. And yeah, it was a shockingly good weekend
Yeah.
because nobody expected McLaren to pull
No,
the results that
no.
they did on that track. And then, yeah, like you said, we saw a lot of different things,
Yeah.
like Max not leading the field by 30 seconds
Yeah.
and Yuki being out qualified by Daniel.
Yeah.
It provided a lot of change, I think,
Yeah.
to what we're used
And
to.
and even more Ferrari on Ferrari violence.
Yes, I think we're going to get a bit of a Brosades, like to a lesser degree, but a bit
Yeah.
of Brosades
Yeah.
2.0
And I
this
think
season.
I don't know. I had this discussion with a friend the other day, and they were saying to me, "Oh, but you're always going to be biased towards Charles." And I'm like, "Well, no, it's not necessarily that I'm biased towards Charles. It's just the fact that if Fred doesn't step in and actually say something to his drivers, and if both of them don't pull their heads in, we're going to have a situation where, like with Mercedes, where Lewis and Nico were crashing into each other, is they're going to be trying to race too hard against each other, and that's what's going to happen."
Yep.
Like it almost happened
Um,
last year at in Italy.
yeah. It's yeah, so like you said, a huge issue with the whole Silver War
Yeah.
Mercedes
Yeah.
situation was Toto not stepping in properly.
Yeah.
And I really like Fred. He's one of the very few team principals we've got left that is like true like racer.
Hmm.
That's what he's there for. He's not there for money or anything.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm really hoping he won't make that same mistake. I'm
Yeah.
not even a Ferrari fan. I'm not a fan of Charles. I'm not a fan of Carlos. I've made that abundantly clear, I'm sure, on multiple occasions.
She has. She reminds me of that quite often.
Um, but yeah, I don't like to see drivers pairings sort of ending poorly,
No,
and
you
I'm
don't want
really
to see them
hoping,
implode like that either.
yeah. So I'm really hoping Fred will actually step in and not make the same mistakes that
Yeah.
Toto did.
Yeah. And kind of just be,
Especially
yeah.
Fred's old enough to have seen what happened there. He's not exactly like a young team principal
No.
or anything.
And I think, and my friend did say this. They're like, "Oh, you're biased towards Charles. Like, you're only ever going to say something about Ferrari when it's about Charles being, in my opinion, her words were, in your opinion, like not getting preferential treatment." And I'm like, well, no, it's got nothing to do with that. It's the fact that I don't want to see no Ferraris finishing races.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I would, if I was Fred, I would grab both of them and smack their heads together and be like, get your shit together, boys. Like, this is ridiculous. And I understand, you never want to concede something to your teammate if you think you're doing better than them. But you also have to know when to concede to your teammate because they're doing better than you. And
yeah,
neither
absolutely.
Charles or Carlos want to do that.
It's
And it's not, just Carlos doing it to Charles. It's Charles doing it to Carlos as well. Like they both do it
yeah,
to.
100. Um, yeah, it's just sort of like, yes, your teammate is absolutely your biggest competition, and you don't, like you said, want to concede to your teammate
Yeah.
if you think you are doing better.
Yeah.
But at some point, you have to go, if we keep racing like this, neither of us are going to finish.
Yeah.
And we should both try to finish.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm definitely keeping a keen eye on that Charles and Carlos situation.
Yeah. I'm interested to see how it goes for the rest of the season, and especially being the first Italian race this weekend as well. I think there will be fireworks of some sort.
Yeah,
Um,
especially considering how much preference there is for Charles from the Tifosi.
yeah. Yeah, let's not. I'm not naive. I know, and I think you guys do know that I am very supportive of certain drivers, but you also know that I do try and keep as a least amount of bias as I can. Because I do try. I don't want to have a bias towards one driver. I don't like Carlos, but I haven't liked Carlos ever. So it's not like he's just been unfortunate, and it's nothing against Carlos. It's just that Carlos has been unfortunate being paired with drivers that I really like. Like I've been a
Yeah,
Nico Hulkenberg fan for years. And I was a Lando fan before he was in F1. I was a Lando fan in his last year of F2 because I was watching that very closely at the time as well. And then, he just happened to be paired with Carlos, and Charles is just, I've always loved Charles, and I love Ferrari because I love Sebastian and I love Kimi. So,
which is fair.
you know,
Um, I just don't like Carlos because I don't like Carlos. I just don't like Charles because I don't like Charles.
yeah. Hashtag no hate Ferrari.
Yeah.
Don't come after us.
Um, so you can't call me biased because I don't like
No,
either of them.
no. But let's fast forward to Miami. 2 sprint races in a row. I think we've both made our thoughts on sprint races abundantly clear at this point.
Yeah,
We don't
absolutely.
dislike them. We just think the structure needs to change. So
Yep.
come on, FIA, get your shit together.
Hit the nail on the head with the do it the same as F2, I think.
Yeah, I think, yeah, do it the same as F2, or we do it on the Friday. And I feel
Yep.
like most tracks, they could do it as night races anyway for the sprints because they're a shorter distance regardless. And they
Yeah.
sort of follow the summer, so the daylight lasts longer anyway.
At that point, like the only sort of issue is Pirelli
Yeah.
tires and their length of time they need to warm up, especially
Yeah.
in colder weather.
Yeah. So
Hashtag bring back Bridgestone.
Miami was a weird one for many reasons.
Yes. A
For
lot
me,
happened in Miami.
it was weird. The track just no one wanted to like the track didn't want to work for anybody. And it's not like the track hadn't been rubbered in enough because they had F1 Academy as well,
Mm.
which I didn't, admittedly, I don't watch F1 Academy. It's a series that I don't really follow. And that's a me preference more than an anything else preference. I don't have anything against female drivers. I have made my thoughts on that abundantly clear as well. It's nothing against females. I'm just not interested.
Cars are too slow.
So, well, as Max said, it's great that they want to, give equal opportunity to females, but they need to be putting them in cars that are going to go the same speed as the other cars. Otherwise, what's the point?
Like at least make it because currently they're slower than F4 cars. So at least put it on par with a normal F4 car
Yeah.
instead of just making it an F4 car that is
Yeah.
slower.
Yeah. And obviously, females can handle F3 cars because Sophia Flörsch has been doing it for years.
Yes, and post spinal injury. So
Yeah. And
clearly that strength issue we always hear about
yeah,
is not
exactly. And Susie Wolf has driven an F1 car in
that
a
one as well.
race.
Yeah,
So, you know, it's not that they can't handle it. So, but anyway,
absolutely.
the track was just, I don't know. I don't know. The track just didn't want to cooperate with anybody. And there was I didn't see it, but you did. There was the whole Charles in the middle of the track thing.
Yeah, there. Oh, yeah. Look, a lot happened. Like you said, it really was not working for anyone, and then there was like so much random damage happening.
So
Um,
much random
Not
damage.
even just random damage, but like random car faults and just kind of felt a bit like Miami was cursed, to be honest.
Yeah. But it was probably one of even though it was a sprint race, it was probably one of the best races in the last 12 months, that sprint.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because there
Um,
was so much going on. There was, K-Mag being K-Mag. Oh,
uh, which is something that I have a love-hate relationship with.
yep, yep,
Hate it from a safety standpoint of somebody who is a steward and somebody who is a marshal.
yep,
Love it from a viewer standpoint.
yep. Oh, Kevin. And so many people, and I feel like it would have been less. I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I feel like people would have been less mad about it if it wasn't Lewis.
Yeah, definitely. There's a few crowd favorites I think people would have been less mad about.
Yep.
Sorry, a few crowd favorites that if it hadn't been them, people would have been less mad about it, Lewis included. Like, I think we would have gotten similar reactions maybe if it was Charles, for example.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I do think people were definitely madder because it was Lewis.
It was Lewis, yeah. I loved it.
Yeah, well, like I said, I have a love-hate relationship with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it as a viewer,
Yeah.
love it as somebody who's not a Lewis fan.
Yeah.
Um,
It's also for me, it's just like, yes, it's a Haas against a Mercedes.
yeah, that's definitely
Like
part
I
of the
would have
loving
had
it
the
as well.
exact same reaction if it was Nico doing it to George.
Yeah,
Like just the fact that it was a Haas and Haas are an American team. American team. Don't even get me started on America at the moment. I'm so sorry for you American fans. I hope you're all okay, and I hope Trump doesn't win. I hope you're okay. Um, but I just yeah, from a viewer point of view, it was very entertaining, and a lot of people, and it was also more entertaining for me as well because how mad people were about it on the internet. And I'm
yeah,
just like, just go touch grass, guys. Just go outside and touch
absolutely.
grass. It's okay. It's okay.
Um, I'm not a Twitter user. I usually forget about it,
Yeah.
except for, the important things.
Yeah.
Um,
The
like I've
important
got
thing, by the way, guys, is Franco Colapinto.
he's got a mullet. Why does he have a mullet? He's trying to embrace Australian culture.
Mullet
Came to
power.
Melbourne and got obsessed. Um, but yeah, like I've got like 3 tweets on there. I don't really use Twitter at all, or X.com or whatever you want to call it.
Whatever.
Um, but I sort of did open the app because the second I saw, all of that going on, I was like, the internet is going to be a war zone.
Yep.
And I opened up Twitter and just the floods of arguments after argument after argument. And there'd be like hundreds and hundreds of like tweets in a single thread
Yeah.
about arguing about like, was it okay? Was it not okay?
It was dangerous, blah, blah, blah. No, it
It
was
was
entertaining, which is what
like,
at the moment, and I hate to say it as a Max fan, but it is what the sport is missing right now.
yeah. Like I said, from a viewer standpoint, I absolutely love it. From
Yeah.
somebody who is a marshal,
Yeah.
like regularly, and a steward regularly,
Yeah. We
hate
should.
it, hate it. But
Yeah.
it was entertaining. I've been really loving K-Mag's terrorism as a viewer.
100%. And there was other things happening at the other end of the field as well, where one Daniel Joseph Ricciardo put on probably one of the best defensive performances I have seen in recent times to hold off,
Uh,
which again, we had a Haas versus a Mercedes, and we also had a V-carb, RB, whatever you want to call them, versus a Ferrari.
yeah, lots of very like bottom tier, maybe
Yeah.
kind of getting to the midfield cars
Yeah.
with cars that we usually see like top midfield,
Yeah. Yeah.
top of the grid.
And also there
Um,
was points in the race, I think it was very brief, but there was points in the race where Daniel was ahead of Sergio Perez as well.
yeah,
Like Daniel was in P3.
I really had a giggle about America, like just bringing him to life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, he's not the second we're in Imola, we're not going to see the same performance,
Nope.
but in America, absolutely. He
Yeah.
loves America.
Let's bring Coda back again. That'll be
Yeah.
another interesting one to watch if Daniel's still around. Touch wood. But it was great. Daniel really did put on a masterclass, and he proved to people that I think he proved to people, not that he ever needed to prove it to me because I love him, but that he has still got it and he is still capable. And you put him in the right car and you get that car into the right position. And not only did he qualified P4 as well. Somehow that quali pace just completely dropped for the race, but let's not go there. Um, but I think, and it was what Daniel needed. Sorry,
Yeah.
don't mind me yawning. Daniel needed kind of that boost. And it was very short-lived because the race didn't end well. But I think it is going to send him, like, we aren't going to have the same Daniel in Imola, but I think we are going to have a more competitive Daniel. Especially now that he has out qualified and outperformed Yuki for a race. I think he's going to want to keep that momentum going.
Yeah.
So that's definitely going to be one to watch. And Miami was also great from a me point of view because, as everybody on this channel knows, I fucking love Lando Norris, and he is no longer Lando No Wins.
Here's Lando now wins.
Lando now wins. So just for context as well, you guys, I was planning on getting up for the race, and then I slept like shit and I didn't get up for the race. I had it spoiled for me because a lot of people, not just Sasha, a lot of people texted me just saying, "Oh my God, Lando," and I was like, "Well, shit, what happened?" I thought maybe he'd crashed and it was really, really bad. And then, 5 laps left, I was like, oh my God, Lando. And I understood what people were talking about. But that does not mean that I did not bawl my eyes out like a little bitch when he crossed that line in P1.
Yeah, well, my mother and I watched it together, got up stupid early to watch it.
Yep.
And neither of us are Lando fans, but we are both McLaren fans.
Yep.
And because of that, we've sort of both developed somewhat of a fondness for
Yeah.
Lando, particularly when he's next to Oscar, who
Yeah.
we both love.
Well, I feel like your love for Lando has come from me as well because I don't shut up about it.
Yeah, I feel like he's definitely sort of grown on me a little bit.
Yeah.
Considering last year, like this time last year, I did not like him at all.
Yeah.
He was like enemy number one in my mind.
Yeah.
But this time last year, I also still liked PA, so things change.
Yeah.
But going back on track off the tangent, we had both gotten up early, and
Yeah.
even we cried and cried and cried.
Yeah. I'm so proud of him. I'm so devastated that his dad wasn't there. Uh,
Yeah, that was so
that
awful.
like that hug that he had with Andrea. Um, like I feel like it would have been like that with his dad, except there would have been tears.
Yeah, it was I was really because we also had Jensen Button there that weekend. And all I could think was, it is such a shame that Lando's dad isn't here, because I think we would have gotten a very similar moment to when Jensen won his championship with Braun GP, and we had that really beautiful moment.
Yeah.
Just the absolute tears as Jensen and his uh Papa Smurf had a
Yeah.
beautiful hug.
Yeah. But I
And I
don't
thought,
think I genuinely don't think there was anyone on the grid that was not happy about Lando winning his first race.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think just in general in the F1 community, I don't think there is many people that would have been unhappy with that win.
I have not seen, and this is so rare, I have not seen a single person complain about the result that we got in
Yeah.
Miami.
Yeah. I haven't seen complaints. I've seen people saying, oh, it was only because of the safety car and only because of this,
Oh,
only because of this,
yeah,
blah
but
blah
in the wise words of Max Verstappen, if my mom had balls, she would be my dad.
blah.
You've really just gotta
In the press
realize,
conference, Atlanta just losing it.
you really just gotta accept that luck is a part of racing, always has been, always will
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
So,
Max was very funny, and I was very proud of him because he was very humble about losing, and he was just,
absolutely,
he was happy for his mate.
yeah. Well, they're good friends. Like, we've seen Lando attend Penelope's birthday party when she turned 4.
Yeah.
And there's a lovely photo, and Lando's right there next to Max with Nick DeVries, actually.
Yeah. Oh, Nick.
He's doing okay.
Oh, Nick.
Not really. He's doing terribly, actually, but
Yeah. Oh, she's
this isn't an FE
again.
podcast.
But yeah, I don't think there was anyone that was unhappy with it. And just Max looked so proud while he was waiting for Lando to get out of the car. And Charles came over and gave him a hug, and his moment with Fernando and Carlos and George, and Daniel running over to give him a hug as well. Like Daniel was proud, and I just
Got
yeah.
to see everyone but his teammate.
Yeah, exactly. But I think I think a lot of people don't realize the relationship that Lando has with Fernando as well.
Mm,
Like that's been going on for a really long time. So, just Fernando going after him as well, and just congratulating his, not necessarily his protege, but being happy. So
yeah, his
yeah,
young friend.
yeah, his young friend.
Uh, though Fernando,
Your internet is not being your friend, Sash. Oh, there you are. You're back. You froze.
uh, you know what this is? This is. I'm just gonna keep blaming it on that solar storm.
It's fine. You're back now.
It's a mix of that good old Australian Wi-Fi and solar storm.
It was a good race too. It's really unfortunate for Oscar because he was doing so well, and then that puncture with gee, thanks, Carlos. Um, I have never wanted to punch Carlos more than I did this weekend, that weekend.
Um,
Just
yeah,
because of
look,
him complaining on the radio so much about Oscar. Like, dude, just stop bitching and focus on doing your job. Like, get over it.
I was the strangest mixture of kind of angry and very amused,
Yeah, yeah, same.
because, like, this goes back to, I have a stewarding background. I looked at that incident so many times, and I was like, you're doing a lot of bitching about Oscar,
Yep,
but you're at fault.
yep,
But he did get a penalty for that, and I was very smug.
yep. As was I. But I just,
I think a lot of
it's
us
so
were.
unnecessary as well. Like,
It's the way he just kept going.
yeah.
Rest of the race on the radio, and
Yeah.
then
And just completely wrecked Oscar's race too because of the
yeah,
puncture. I think Oscar would have well and truly have been in the points as well. He did amazing to fight back to P19, to P not P19 to P13.
yeah.
As did Daniel from the back of the grid to P15.
It's just a shame how late in the race.
Yeah, if it was earlier on, I think Oscar could have recovered. And I think it was also coming from a place of Carlos knowing that, it was going to be Lando's win and he wanted to be on that podium with him. Uh,
Yeah,
I mean, for me personally, it was like an amazing podium because it was my boys. So, but I felt so bad for Logan as well. My heart broke for him.
I
Oh,
I love Logan. That's another thing. Like if anybody, has seen my Instagram, my like social media at all, I'm a huge Logan lover purely because of yeah, well, I was really sort of uncaring, apathetic,
yeah,
just didn't really have an opinion
yeah,
towards Logan all of last year and the start of this year.
yeah.
And then I met him in Melbourne
Yeah, I said the
and
same. I was like, I would never have pictured myself as someone that was defending Logan. And then I met him and he's such this tiny, sweet little man. Not
yeah,
tiny,
he's
very tall, but
very oh God, he's tall.
he's just this sweet.
Maybe we're just short.
Yeah, we are, but that's beside the point. um,
Um,
he's
but
just
yeah, he's very lovely.
yeah,
And so
and his
I'm very obviously
behind us up was it my fault and just and just his
yeah,
engineer rushing to tell him it wasn't your fault, it wasn't your fault, it wasn't your fault. Like
yeah.
I feel really bad for the kid. I do, and he's not going to be there next year. Potentially going to be on the grid next year. Apparently, Haas are interested. I'm not quite sure how true that is.
Well,
Uh,
that's only really come out today for the
yeah,
most part as well.
I very much think that Ollie Bateman is going to be at Haas next year. I've said that a couple times now.
Me
Um,
too.
Especially with him doing as many free practice sessions as he is this year. Speaking of, he's in the car this weekend again in FP1.
Whether I think he should be there is a different matter entirely, but
Yes, but we know why. We know the
yeah, we
bias
know why.
towards Kimi Antonelli, who I personally don't see the hype about. But anyway,
He's
that's
a
a
great driver, but
that's a
he
discussion for another time.
yeah,
Yeah,
he's not the second coming of Christ that Toto Wolff acts like he is.
no, and he's yeah. There are other drivers that should get the seat ahead of him as well. I think if they rush too early and promote him too soon, we're gonna have
Logan 2.0.
we're going to have a Logan 2.0 and we're going to have a Pierre at Red Bull situation where it's just not going to end well. And then people are going to be like, well, what was the point of that then? So
Yeah.
Ollie Behrman, on the other hand, I think very much deserves a seat next year. Would love to see him in a seat next year.
Look,
Yeah.
okay, so when it comes down to it, do I think he's going to get that Haas seat? Yes. Do I think he deserves it? No.
Yeah.
Because he did really well in the Ferrari. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Undeniably.
Yeah.
But I think a spec series like F2 is the true tell of your talent,
Yes.
and I don't think it's there.
Yeah. But also
I think if you put
Ferrari,
him in a Haas,
I think you could have put anybody in that Ferrari and they would have done an awesome job because of the way the
yeah,
car is. Like,
that's what I'm saying. I think the spec series is the true tell of your talent.
yeah.
And if he's in a Ferrari, I think Ollie can do just fine. But in a Haas,
Yeah.
I'm less sure about. I think
I
there's
think
definitely
there's
better people on the grid.
although we may find out if Kevin continues to be a terrorist because have to sit out for a race and Ollie will be in the car anyway.
Yeah,
So we'll see.
we
But
will
I
see.
think we're gonna wrap there because I think we've been chatting for almost an hour.
Wonderful.
You're losing daylight. I'm losing.
I'm seriously losing daylight. Yeah.
So we're gonna end it there. I'm hoping to get this out to you guys. Hopefully, it'll come out Friday morning, and you'll get to listen to this before you watch everything Imola related. We've got Imola this weekend. We've got F2, we've got F3, and we have F1. I am predicting another podium for Lando, not necessarily a P1 because I think Max is going to come back and just do Max things. I also think the McLaren's going to struggle on the track.
Ignoring F1 for a moment, I'm predicting we're gonna get a Franco P1.
You can keep
Surely.
dreaming about that, sweetheart. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think we can
Franco
I think we
Colapinto
can pretty
P1.
much confirm a Luke Browning podium. Possibly two. Hopefully two podiums, Luke. But yeah, if you guys want to follow me on all of the socials, you know what my handles are. I will pop them in the description box below. If you want to catch up with Sasha, you can follow her on, you're pretty active on Instagram, right?
Yeah, Instagram's mostly what I
You
use.
can follow her on Instagram and your handle is
Sasha on track. One word, all lowercase.
Yep. I will also pop that in the description box. I will see you guys. I think we have back to back with Imola and Monaco.
I
Um,
think so, yeah.
So I will see you guys back here after Monaco. If you come hang out on my Twitch stream on Tuesday night, I will do a quick live recap of Imola. Or you can wait and you can catch the podcast after Monaco. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you guys so much for watching if you're here on YouTube. I hope you have a lovely rest of your weekend and I'll see you next time. Bye.